Tonight, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control launches COVID-19 data collection project to address citizen skepticism around government safety protocols. Nigerians in the United Arab Emirates raise concern over the prolonged disagreements between Nigeria and the UAE over COVID-19 flight protocols. The President approves dates for the Congresses of the All Progressives Congress at the ward, local government and state levels, says ruling party has bounced back to life. An ex-Minneapolis police officer, Derek Chauvin, sentenced to 22 years in prison by a judge in Minnesota for the killing of George Floyd. Plus, business sports news from Abuja and later, international news from our studio in London.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's foreign exchange reserves fall to 13 months low despite significant gains in oil prices in the international market.
On sports news tonight, former Super Eagles coach Samson Siasia blames Nigeria Football Federation and the federal government for abandoning him during his appeal against his ban from football.
And from Abuja, internally displaced children in a community in Maiduguri, Borno State get a chance to acquire education in a school donated by the African Missions Global.
Nigeria is intensifying efforts to contain the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic with the launch of a COVID-19 data collection project, which they say will enhance risk communication and address skepticism around government responses to the virus. The project, which is being handled by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, is in collaboration with the University of Lagos College of Medicine and funded by donor partners. It is designed to gather data on the behavioral patterns of citizens and how this affects their responses to the government's COVID-19 safety protocols.
The unveiling of this Data for COVID-19 challenge in Abuja is the latest strategy by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control to drive government response to the pandemic with verifiable data. Findings from this project will enhance risk communication around COVID-19 and other infectious diseases.
I'm optimistic that at the end of this project, the findings and insights will lead us to inform our leaders better, our leadership in the response, in order to define better how to respond.
Skepticism around risk communication and government interventions remain a major challenge in the COVID-19 response, but the Minister of State for Education believes that this can be addressed through the use of accurate data.
Let data inform us. We are running a country. The dialectics of data versus this sociological context in which you interpret data must always be a dialectic that must be thought about at all times. And this is the gravamen of what it is that this thing needs to do. We want to know the total population in Nigeria who didn't come in contact with this. Why? The tests we perform in Nigeria is very misleading. So you can see 3 million tests, but you've applied them only to 300,000 people over the past 1 year because we do not have a national identification number to go with it. Why is that? Every other place, if you are testing in the US, they ask you for social.
Many factors have been attributed to the low test rates for COVID-19 in Nigeria, as well as vaccine hesitancy experienced with the ongoing vaccines rollout. It is hoped that findings from this project will help the government to come up with a more effective risk communication strategy that will change the narratives.
And outside the shores of the country, Nigerians in the United Arab Emirates have continued to voice their frustration regarding the prolonged impasse between Nigeria and the UAE. Disagreement over COVID-19 flight protocol has lingered since February and has now become a problem for career professionals and business owners. Our Dubai correspondent, Mayowa Adegoke, tells us more about the situation.
Dismay and confusion best describe the feeling of Nigerians following yet another failed attempt by the Nigerian government and Dubai's Emirates airline to resolve a 4-month deadlock over COVID-19 flight protocols.
I have work. I need to go to Nigeria for my work. I can't plan. I can't, tell my employers what's going on because I don't have an explanation. It doesn't add up.
Well, I think the Nigerian government should know that it's not only Nigeria, it's not only the UAE that is losing flights into Nigeria. Nigerian business people are also losing in this business, and they should just do all they can to ensure that we start this.
Well, it's been completely devastating for us because majority of our business actually comes from tourism. People coming into the country, hosting weddings. It has really reduced the market for us.
Barely 48 hours after announcing Nigerian travelers would be welcome from the 23rd of June, Emirates Airline reversed its decision, reinstating a suspension till further notice.
Basically, it is really kind of an open secret that at that time, the business, if you can call it, the business of getting and arranging a negative COVID-19 test in Nigeria was booming. And many Nigerians would rather go and get those certificates instead of them to go and take the test.
They never give us. That's what they give me.
This impasse has been on since February.
So UAE government are ever ready to, dialogue and tie knots with Nigeria government. But Nigeria government is the one, being dormant about the reconciliation, negotiation, and resolution.
In Dubai's latest protocol, Nigerians are asked to provide a negative PCR test taken within 48 hours. Many say this arrangement only favors Emirates Airline and implies monopoly. On the other hand, the Nigerian government seems to be unconcerned about the impact of this situation on its citizens in the UAE, who now look forward to a high-level conversation between both countries to end the impasse. From Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, Mayowa Adegoke for Channels Television News.
Back in Nigeria and to politics, the All Progressives Congress has fixed September 18th to hold its state congresses, while the local government congresses will hold in August the 14th and the ward congresses July the 24th. President Muhammadu Buhari gave the approval for the dates after reviewing the report of the ruling party's National Caretaker Committee. The committee presented the report to the president in the State House and briefed him on the party's preparation for the Anambra governorship election. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Mezoke, reports.
President Muhammadu Buhari arrives the First Lady's conference room to receive yet another defector from the opposition party presented to him by the National Caretaker Committee.
Mr. President, I have the pleasure to present to you Senator Peter Wumbushi.
Presenting the party's progress report, Chairman of the Caretaker Committee boasts about recent decampees as well as the 40 million APC members.
We are witnessing high-powered defections, including serving governors from PDP to our great party. It is also interesting that the fortune of the party in the last year has greatly improved across the country and especially in the southeast, which has been the stronghold of the opposition. It is our firm belief that the Congress and Convention will hold with a people-based template that will promote transparency, credibility, and acceptability.
According to the report, the president approved the timetable for the APC ward, local government, and state congresses to hold in July, August, and September. while no mention was made for that of the National Convention, which will see the emergence of the party's National Executive Committee. The president believes the party is now heading in the right direction.
We are all living witnesses to the crisis that engulfed our great party, leading to multiple litigation and series of defections from the party. At some point, members doubted how we were going to face the country in a general election with such mindless behavior. It is gratifying to note that with the coming of the Caretaker Extraordinary Convention Planning Committee and its effective management of the affairs of the party and the pursuit of its mandate, the party has bounced back to life.
Amending the party structure is fundamental, but the importance of leaving behind a legacy of transparency and adherence to democratic principles is one cogent message the president is hoping would be obeyed to the letter because of its far-reaching consequence on the nation's political survival. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezeke, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the PDP says it will proceed with its governorship primary in Anambra State, despite 2 court judgments, but not without some adjustments. A statement by the party says governorship primary will hold on Saturday, June the 26th. The party says it will adopt a lawful process of allowing eligible automatic delegates carry out the responsibilities of electing candidates for the governorship election. The Southeast Zonal Caretaker Committee of the party will oversee and manage the affairs of activities of the primary, pending when new executives will be elected for the state. Liberia's former president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, is urging the Nigerian government to live up to its leadership role in Africa by electing more women in leadership positions in its government. Mrs. Johnson Sirleaf was speaking at the 60th birthday symposium organized for the Deputy United Nations Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, at the Yaradua Center in Abuja. President Muhammadu Buhari was represented by his Chief of Staff, Ambassador Ibrahim Gambari, while other top government officials, traditional and religious leaders, as well as members of the diplomatic community, were in attendance.
That I've wanted to ask. In Nigeria, to whom we look to for leadership, leadership in all aspects of our endeavor. Why have we not had a woman governor? The office of authority at the local level, which speaks to the acceptance of women leadership once it has been rightfully earned. I thank those who have talked about deputy governors and to you, Excellency, from Gombe State. But I still ask another question. What will it require and when to have the second elected woman president?
Liberia's former president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, speaking there. And to security, the Department of State Services, DSS, says it has invited Kaduna-based Islamic cleric Sheikh Ahmed Gumi for questioning, but the DSS did not state the reasons for the invitation. DSS spokesperson Peter Afanaya told our correspondents that it is not out of place for it to invite any person of interest. Meanwhile, the Kaduna-based Islamic cleric has debunked reports that he was either quizzed or invited for questioning by the Department of State Services over his remarks against the military.
Nobody invited me for questioning or any arrest. I can categorically say that. But since when I venture into the forest, I go there with full security, with the police, with the knowledge of the SS, with the government officials, with the traditional rulers, and with the Fulani leaders. I never went alone. So all along, I've been doing it with the government, and there is no any difference between us and the authority. So people should have their peace.
In part two, after the break, Lagos Judicial Panel awards 83 million naira to more victims of police brutality. Family of Kolade Johnson killed during a raid by police gets 10 million naira. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder about top stories. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control launches COVID-19 data collection project to address citizen skepticism around government safety protocols. Nigerians in the United Arab Emirates raise concerns over the prolonged disagreement between Nigeria and the UAE over COVID-19 flight protocols. The President approves dates for the Congresses of the All Progressives Congress at the ward, local government and state levels, says ruling party has bounced back to life. An ex-Minneapolis police officer, Derek Chauvin, sentenced to 22 years in prison by a judge in Minnesota for the killing of George Floyd. In Kaduna State, bandits suspected to be kidnappers have abducted the vice chairman of Jeba, local government area of the state, Mr. James B. Jimmy, and an unspecified number of travelers along the Kaduna-Kachia road. The latest incident comes 2 days after bandits killed a driver and kidnapped 33 other people in Kachia metropolis. Confirming the incident, the spokesman of the Kaduna State Police Command, Mohammed Jalige, says security operatives recovered 3 vehicles belonging to the abductees. He, however, did not give the number of those abducted, but explains that 1 person was injured. The Lagos Judicial Panel has awarded the sum of 10 million naira to the family of Kolade Johnson, who was shot dead during a raid by police officers in Lagos while watching an English Premiership match between Tottenham and Manchester United on the 31st of March 2019. The incident generated public outcry, after which the police authorities identified Ogunyemi Olalikon, a police inspector, and Godwin Oji, a sergeant, as the officers involved in the shooting. The police inspector, Lalekon, was dismissed from the force after he was found guilty, while Oji was acquitted. The chairman of the Lagos panel, Justice Doris Okobi, announced the compensation at the sitting today, with the sum received by the mother of the victim. 13 petitioners, including Johnson's family, were compensated with a total of 83 million naira at the sitting. And to other stories, the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Oladayo Amao, says insecurity in the country will soon be resolved by the federal government, as the armed forces will be receiving some equipment in July that will give a positive boost to the security situation in the country. He gave the hint today at the Bayelsa State Government House when he paid a visit to the state governor.
The government is doing a lot to ensure that the security situation in the country is being resolved, and for the armed forces, we are expecting some equipment in July. We are expecting the A-29 Super Tucano aircraft. 6 of them are coming in July, and we're also expecting some UAVs, armed UAVs, are coming in July. So we expect that there will be turn of events. So once we receive this equipment in July, so we expect that the security situations will be a thing of the past soonest in the country.
The number one function of every government is to ensure peace and security of lives and properties. And when once a government fails, be it at the federal or at the state, then that government has failed. And that's why For us in Bielsa, we are very bothered at what is happening nationwide, particularly in the north and in the southeast. I believe that those of you who have come in now to take the saddle of leadership, God will grant you His wisdom, God will grant you His knowledge, and God will guide over you so that we bring peace to this country.
The United States has been highlighting the challenges journalists face in prioritizing physical safety and meeting standards of objectivity and integrity in reporting conflict. In a bid to help journalists in the country handle this challenge, the U.S. Embassy is partnering Channels Academy to train reporters in conflict reporting and peace journalism. So far, over 150 journalists have been trained on the subject.
Been in some sort of conflict.
Drawn from the print and broadcast media, these journalists are part of a 3-day training on peace journalism.
What does a journalist do in such a situation?
For 3 days, the resource person, Mr. Stephen Youngblood, who joined the session virtually, spoke on the rudiments of reporting terrorism stories and civic unrest without creating tensions.
We can use images to tell the story. We can also use images that dehumanize, that stereotype, and so on.
Participants in different groups held discussions on various topics, ranging from the role of the media in reconciliation, objective reporting, as well as reporting IDPs and refugees.
The media can actually reflect public views and at the same time take reconciliation stance by avoiding biased reporting.
The idea is that these journalists will lead the drive for a new style of reportage that will impact on the Nigerian media.
How do we really think about our reporting? Are we making it as objective as it can possibly be? Are we presenting all sides to the story with analysis that's helpful to the general public? Are we not taking sides but presenting all solutions on the table? These are some of the issues that we discussed and what it means to be peace journalists.
I'm sure that journalists are living here enriched, more determined and inspired to do their work without bias. And I keep harping on the word to practice the profession responsibly in such a way that will continue to be the beacon of hope, for the country.
Some of the participants share their experience.
I've practiced journalism for a long time now, but there were things I was exposed to in the course of this training that I never saw it that way. Deploying peace journalism approaches that de-escalates tension and creates platform for dialogue and reconciliation.
To do so, taking it back, I will try as much as possible to tell my colleagues to the way they ask the questions, the way they analyze the situations. They should be very careful not to put in too much emotion into it, or not to put in emotion at all into it, and to remember that they are not peace advocates. They are just supposed to be peace journalists.
As the curtain closes, these journalists are equipped to report in a manner that will ease the tension in the country.
Let's head over to River State, where the Governor Nyesom Wike continued with the commission of projects in the state for the 4th week. The commissioning of more roads in Obiakpo local government area. And this is with the former Senate President as a special guest. Governor Wike says the projects are a clear testimony of the commitment of his government to justify all its expenses and loans, unlike the APC.
It's the 4th week in the series of inauguration of projects by Governor Nyesom Wike to mark his 6 years in office as Governor of River State. And former Senate President Iyorchia Ayu is the special guest for the commissioning of 2 road projects.
May God bless us all. Amen.
Located within the industrial town of Oginigba in Obiakpo local government area, the Oginigba and Pabod Breweries roads are strategic to the economic development of River State.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to give a speech.
For Governor Wike, the voice of the opposition parties in River State has been suppressed by his excellent provision of infrastructure across the 23 local government areas.
Here, People are no longer accusing us that we are not doing anything. The accusation now is, yes, they are doing something, but they are taking loans. Before, we are not doing. But now they have seen a lot of things we are doing. They now say we are taking loans. It's good. We are taking loans, as they said, and people are seeing what we are doing. But their own government is taking loan. Have we seen anything? It's better to take loan and do something for your people. Something that people will see with their eyes. Not every time National Assembly will approve $2 billion US, $4 billion US, $10 billion US. At the end of the day, is there anything to show of the loans we have taken?
To Rivers State.
For the special guest and former president of the Senate, Iyorchia Ayu, the 2023 election opens the room for unity among ethnic minority groups to wrestle power from the ruling APC.
Any leader who comes forward must be prepared to take every Nigerian as his constituency. This is very important. And I think the PDP governors are upholding this and showing an example to Nigerians that this is the only party that can keep this country together as a united entity. As long as people come in with propaganda, social media, and begin to behave in a parochial way, nothing is going to move forward.
This new addition will indeed improve the economy of Rivers State as Governor Wike plans to commission and flag off more projects in the weeks ahead in continuation of the celebration of the second year of his second term in office.
When the news at 10 returns, some internally displaced children in Borno State get a chance to acquire education. Plus, Nigeria's foreign reserves fall to 13 months low despite significant gains in oil prices in the international market. That's on Business News. Please join us again. And now we're off to our Abuja studios where Linda Kigwe has some more stories. Good evening, Linda.
Hello, Millicent. The African Missions Global, a full-fledged faith-based, non-for-profit organization, has built and donated a school for internally displaced children living in the host community in Maiduguri, Borno State. The school facility has a capacity to accommodate at least 300 children from both the displaced people's camp and the host community.
Children displaced from Gwaza local government area of Borno State 7 years ago alongside their parents. The much younger ones are born during the displacement. The Africa Missions Global, a charity affiliated with the Redeemed Christian Church of God operating across 5 continents, has been housing no fewer than 50 families in this facility. Now, a new school is established to meet the educational needs of the children.
Some of the children, they were not going to school, and the parents were not able to sponsor them. This one brought about getting another land and building a school for the children.
Children can now attend classes in their new school, just a stone throw from home. Far away from Gwaza, yet they keep their culture close to the heart, as proudly showcased before guests. The Borno State Emergency Management Agency says this project is in line with the Borno State government's long-term plan for the affected population.
The Borno State government is presently relocating IDPs back to their ancestral homes. For African Mission Global, despite all the challenges, to build this edifice here for the IDPs and for the community, we sincerely appreciate it.
Community leaders who welcomed the intervention say it's the first of its kind in Shagari low-cost B residential area.
We welcome this help they have brought to us because since we have been here, we have never seen anything like a school and the rest of it. But today, Africa Missions Global has built us a school to help us.
We were all there idle at home before, and the children spent time doing bad things they shouldn't be doing. But now we're grateful they have changed a lot.
The children are keen to learn and express themselves. They now have ambitions. Their lives have changed.
Clap for her. If they learn something, if they never keep your hair for one place, they can carry you and keep it. They will keep you and they say, "Did you understand this thing?" If you say no, they will tell you, say, "Okay, let me still read it for you." That is why I like this school. They give me books, textbook. They give me free education, and then they give me a house to sit.
With this project, at least 300 displaced children and their friends in the host community are guaranteed an education, thanks to Africa Missions Global.
A team from the Federal Ministry of Health, led by the Permanent Secretary Abdulaziz Abdullahi, has paid a courtesy visit to the newly commissioned EMSA ultra-modern pharmaceutical factory in Shagamu, Ogun State. After a tour of the manufacturing site, the Permanent Secretary gives assurances that the indigenous pharmaceutical company has the support of government.
This is the new EMSA ultra-modern WHO-compliant pharmaceutical factory located in Shagamu, Ogun State, the latest milestone achieved by EMSA Pharmaceuticals. And this courtesy visit by the Permanent Secretary of the Federal Ministry of Health and his team is to check out the new manufacturing complex and see if it meets set standards. First, the team tours the grounds of the complex before inspecting the facilities, including the oral solid dosage factory where pharmaceutical products are produced. They head back to this conference room where the Permanent Secretary speaks on the results of the assessment.
I've heard so much of what Amazon have been doing, so it is heartwarming for me to be here today. With all the senior technical team that are here, we saw what we saw, and I want to assure you that we are going back to Abuja with the hope and the desire that Amazon will do all, the government will do all it can to actualize this President Buhari's idea of local content.
This manufacturing site is the fourth factory EMSA Pharmaceuticals operates from, and the executive director of the company says it's been in the works for a while.
This is the fourth manufacturing site for our organization. In Lagos, we have 3 separate, distinct factories that we operate. So this one was not so much about the timing, but the imperative. Internationally, quality in our industry is tied to processes, which means you have to have a certain flow. So some of the products we aspired to manufacture that the country really needed, things on the essential drugs list, are always imported because you need dedicated plants for that. So we needed enough space. This facility sits on 60 hectares. And there are, I think, currently 4 distinct plants to enable us meet the international standard.
EMSA is one of the leading Nigerian pharmaceutical companies in the country, and the state-of-the-art manufacturing site, equipped to meet global standards, is one that will help the country meet the increasing demand for health products.
The Nigeria Football Federation and estate giants Revolution Plus Property Limited have signed a new partnership deal they believe will engender rapid development of Nigeria football across all national teams. The 5-year deal will see Revolution Plus become the official real estate partner of the NFF.
The Nigeria Football Federation is taking another giant stride in its drive to become self-sustaining.
Company that is second to none.
The new partner to come on board is Revolution Plus, here at the Hot Sports Studio in Lagos to finalize a deal that will see the company officially become the real estate partner of the NFF.
This partnership is unique and very special to us because, number one, football and property coming together. Why? Because shelter is very, very important to every Nigerian, and the housing deficit in Nigeria is alarming. That's why Revolution Plus come on board as a game-changing real estate company in Nigeria. So we feel our players abroad, our footballers, both the Super Eagles, the Super Falcons, the Golden Eagles, the Flying Eagles, and the Dream Team, and even our MPFL players can take advantage of the Revolution Plus tool and quickly become a landlord and a home owner.
The Nigeria Football Federation is excited about the addition to its numerous partners.
Apart from the Super Eagles, which is a super brand, the Super Falcons again, the leadership is now becoming a brand as well. So people now believe in maybe the tripod, the Super Eagles, the leadership, and the Super Falcons. Our goal is to have 100% because football is meant to fund itself.
So, to commemorate the signing ceremony, to make it official, to make it legal, which is why we have our legal mind here with us as well, to make it official, Amaju, what you simply need to do is put the key in the hole, and that will officially indicate that this deal is officially done.
With the new deal, Revolution Plus will not only become a visible brand during the national team's competitive games, the company will also have access to all the national teams like other partners and sponsors of the NFF.
And that's all from Abuja. Next up is Business News with Teniola Shubowali.
Thanks a lot, Linda. Nigeria's FX reserves has maintained the steady decline recorded over the last few weeks. This time, it dropped by $215.62 million week to date to $33.55 billion as at June the 24th. This comes as the price of crude oil continues to rise on the international market, with the price of Brent at $76.10 per barrel and the US WTI crude at $73.98 per barrel today. Traders credit the resumed intervention at the spot and forward forex market by the central bank to the continued decline in the country's external buffers. Meanwhile, the proposed increased special drawing rights allocation by the International Monetary Fund for its member countries is expected to support the accretion in the reserve, with Nigeria's SCI allocation seen higher by about $3 billion in the third quarter. Meanwhile, Nigeria's currency, the naira, depreciated by 0.2% to 411 naira, 67 kobo against the dollar at the investor and exporters forex window. At the same time, the local currency dropped by 0.4% to 500 naira against the dollar at the popular parallel FX market after it remained stable for the third consecutive day this week. Traders credit the drop on the naira to increased demand for forex by end users. Meanwhile, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, told investors in the UK this week that he expects the true value of the naira to be between 430 to 440 to the dollar. With more than 155 billion naira lost to renewed sell pressure by investors, Nigeria's stock market returns to negative territory after a one-day rebound. Ini John Mekwa has details of today's transactions on the exchange.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, after just one day of respite, the bear took over the equities market again, making it 4 negative sessions this week. It's a 0.78% shaved off the all-share index, Deals, volume and value of transactions carried out today were lower compared to previous session. With this, the market lost 155 billion naira from total value of listed equities. Now, let's trace this negative sentiment by looking at the sectoral performance. Insurance was up 1.51%. Oil and gas dropped 0.09%. Banking maintained the uptrend by over 1%, but industrial goods counter lost almost 2%. A further analysis shows that investors did a lot of profit taking on Dangote Cement, with more than 491,000 units of its shares worth 108.6 million naira traded. This explains the 9 naira loss in the industrial giant's share price. Let's also look at this. GTCO and FBN Holding made it to the top trades list for the day. Well, it hasn't been a very profitable week, but we made it and we remain optimistic for a better outing next week. That's the stock market report. I'm Ini John Mekwa.
And that's business news tonight. It's back to Millicent for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Teniola. Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin has been sentenced to 22.5 years in prison in the 2020 murder of George Floyd. Prosecutors had asked for a 30-year sentence, while Chauvin's lawyers sought no additional jail time. The 45-year-old was convicted in April of second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. Let's head over to our London studios now, where Simon Pusey has more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Rescuers are desperately searching for any survivors trapped in the rubble of a collapsed 12-story residential building north of Miami in the United States. Search teams have been working around the clock and have reported hearing people banging beneath the debris. What caused the collapse of the building early on Thursday morning remains unclear.
As the mayor had said, we have hope, and every time that we hear...
At least 102 people have now been accounted for, but it is uncertain how many were in the building when it came down. President Joe Biden has approved an emergency declaration for Florida, meaning the federal government will help state agencies with the relief effort. A tornado has swept through several villages in the Czech Republic, killing 4 people and leaving more than 100 others injured. The storm blew the roofs off buildings, uprooted trees and overturned cars. Winds of at least 219 kilometers per hour were recorded, with the worst hit areas resembling a war zone. Hailstones the size of tennis balls were reported, and local officials said a string of villages had suffered considerable damage along a 25-kilometre stretch of the road. The government said around 1,000 homes had been affected, and local authorities were working to provide accommodation for people whose roofs had been destroyed. A Belarusian journalist who was taken off a Ryanair plane forced to land in Minsk has been transferred to house arrest. Roman Protasevich was taken into custody on suspicion of inciting unrest after his dramatic capture in May. His girlfriend, Russian citizen Sofia Sapega, was also arrested with him and has also been moved to house arrest. Since their capture, Mr. Protasevich and Ms. Sapega have been paraded on Belarusian TV confessing to criminal activity in recordings which have appeared to be made under duress. The United Nations has condemned the recruitment of child soldiers after Burkina Faso's government said a recent massacre was mostly carried out by children and adolescents. The attack is considered to be the worst in years in Burkina Faso, and more than 130 people were killed. Attackers raided the village of Solhan on the evening of June the 4th, opening fire on residents and burning homes. Local officials in Burkina Faso's north said child soldiers had been used by militant groups over the past year, but this is the most high-profile case. The US is planning to evacuate thousands of Afghans who worked for the American military ahead of September's troop withdrawal. The plan could involve moving as many as 50,000 people to other countries, along with their families. Afghan interpreters who have worked for the US for years fear reprisals from the Taliban after their withdrawal. As many as 18,000 Afghans have applied for US visas, but the lengthy process has been hindered by delays. The plan is to move them to other countries before September, where their applications can be finalized in safety. Donald Trump's embattled personal lawyer has been suspended from practicing law in New York State over his demonstrably false and misleading claims about the 2020 election.
All the networks. Wow!
The 77-year-old Rudy Giuliani A former mayor of New York became the public face of Trump's legal challenges after the former president refused to accept his loss to President Biden, filing dozens of lawsuits in courts across the country and suffering a series of defeats. The 5-judge panel ruled that Mr. Giuliani had lied to the public and in legal statements about voter fraud in a way that had been defined threatening to the public interest and warrants interim suspension from the practice of law. And finally, nearly 6 decades after France's prehistoric Lascaux caves were made off-limits, visitors will be once again able to tour the site, only this time in virtual reality. From July the 8th, at a museum in Paris, groups of 6 people wearing virtual reality headsets will be able to take a 45-minute interactive tour through the 235-metre long cave network dubbed the Sistine Chapel of the Prehistoric Era. The cave contains paintings of animals, human figures, and abstract signs that date back as far as 17,000 years. And that's your international news around the world in 5. And now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Former Super Eagles coach Samson Siasia has applauded the decision of the Court of Arbitration for Sport, CAS, to reduce the live ban slammed on him by FIFA to 5 years. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, Siasia blamed the Nigeria Football Federation and the federal government for abandoning him as he had to fight his case without government support. He explained that his only regret is that FIFA failed to afford him a fair opportunity to defend himself before handing the initial live ban on him.
Who will tell you, what have you done with your money? I know what I've done. I've invested in human beings that have done something for their own people. That's my investment. What else can you do as an individual that has played for this country and have trained so many players? I think I've done the bit that I can for Nigeria. And I'm not happy at all. It pains me. How can I fight people? I don't have that kind of power. I don't have it. If Nigerian government was involved a little bit, I think that would shake FIFA and allow them to do the right thing.
Well, ahead of next month's Tokyo Olympics, the Nigerian Olympians Association is asking the federal government to remember the labor of past Olympians who brought honors to the country. President of the association, Olumide Oyedeji, says a national recognition of past Olympians will give impetus and inspiration to athletes representing Nigeria at the Games.
We feel like if nobody appreciates us as an Olympian, we want to be appreciated. We want people to feel like, yes, we are here to do what we need to do, to appreciate our Olympian, to appreciate our hero, to appreciate our legends, also to appreciate our icons. So for all the labor, the sweat, pains and agony, for not and never not to go in pain, sorry, to go in vain.
And that's a wrap in sports news.
Thank you, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control today launched a COVID-19 data collection project in collaboration with the University of Lagos to address citizen skepticism around government safety protocols and responses to COVID-19 interventions. That's the news at 10 to 9. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Stay safe. Have a good night.